Good morning. Welcome to Empowering Women series. My name is Pia McAdams. I'm an author, I'm an accounting professor, and I'm also a certified life coach. I specialize in personal and small business finance and also fitness. I help people reach their goals. And on this series of Inspiring Women, it's entitled How to Start All Over After Surviving Cancer. And I'm so happy to be bringing to you today Mona Friday. And basically, this series here is designed for women. It's a forum so that we can actually share our stories, our triumph, our experiences as we navigate through this life. And there's no judgment. It's just an opportunity to share and be supportive and respectful and just have compassion for each other. So again, she's an author. She's also a speaker, and she's a mom of two beautiful children. She has a son who's they're older than 18 and 19, and she also has a daughter. Now, Mona actually served in the Army for about 7 years, and she's a disabled vet. But one of the things that she mentioned to me that I think is very noteworthy is that Mona achieved her associate's degree, her bachelor's degree, and also her master's degree, all in her 40s. Okay, so all within the 40s. So it's never too late as it relates to education. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce and present to you Mona Landers. Friday. Hi, Mona. I almost forgot the Friday. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Pia. I appreciate being on your show.
Oh, thank you for coming. I'm so excited and so happy to have you on here. Like when you told me about your story, it's definitely something that, really needs to be addressed and really shared with people. And I just want to kind of share with the audience that when we had like our little pre-chat, I was mentioning about, this forum having the opportunity for people to share their stories. And Mona was like, well, a lot of times people don't share their stories because they're never asked. So I really like that you shared that with me because I never thought of that aspect. You're right. How many times do people ask you about your story?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as a mom, you're busy taking care of your children and taking care of everybody else, because nobody ever seems to ask you how you are or think that you even had a mom. You didn't have anything before your children.
Right. So now tell us about your story. And I noticed I mentioned about you being a disabled vet. So can you kind of expound on that?
Okay. While I was on active duty, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I'm happy to say that June 21st, I celebrated 23 years cancer-free.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. And so while I was on active duty, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then once I eventually got out of the military, then I worked through the VA, and I got disability. So I've also been diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety disorder. Mm-hmm. Now, thankfully, through the VA, they've offered so much help. I've received mindfulness training. I've done cognitive behavioral therapy. And so at one point, I didn't even realize that I had PTSD. It wasn't until years later because, I did know that I, of course, had breast cancer and that I went through all the treatment and all of that. But, and I have disability for that. But I found out through, having issues with my civilian job because I had become a teacher. I was a third grade teacher and I was having trouble at work. And then I was going through some counseling with the VA and found out that I did have PTSD. So working with them, I was able to work through these issues. And I had been on medication, but thankfully through the mindfulness training and cognitive behavioral therapy, I was able to stop taking medication. And I have techniques that I use to help me to stay calm and peaceful and healthy. So I am transitioning from calling myself a disabled vet to an Army veteran.
Okay, nice. Now let's take us back to the cancer. Like, how old were you when you were diagnosed with that?
I was 26.
Wow.
I was 26. I was in great health. I could run 5 miles with all my Army, with the unit, and do all that PT and all that. And I didn't have any risk factors, and I didn't smoke. I wasn't a heavy drinker. I wasn't overweight. I didn't have all those risk factors that you would associate with cancer. So, one day I found it. It just showed up on the outer left side of, my breast there on the rib cage. And so I went to sick call, and I I could hear the tech talking to the doctor in the hallway, and he was laughing. He said, "Oh, all these soldiers just think they're dying. There's nothing I can do for her. Send her to the GYN clinic." I just thank God that I already had an appointment set up there, because I was so humiliated. I don't know that I would have followed through and made an appointment there. But I did see the surgeon, and they just waited. They said, we don't think you have it. So about 4 months went by, and I said, I don't think it's a cyst. I want it out. And they did, they removed it. And they thought, my surgeon said, "Oh, I bet a year's salary." And so I went back the following week to have them check out the incision. And you would have thought he was my dad telling me that I had cancer, because he was just sick about it. And so that's thankfully I fought for myself. You have to be your own advocate.
Right.
So, yeah, so that started the journey. That was June 2nd of 1994.
So you're saying that your family didn't have a history of breast cancer or anything?
No. And the crazy thing was, after I had breast cancer and survived, then my mom has 3 sisters, and all 3 of the sisters ended up with cancer. 2 of them passed away. One had ovarian cancer, and then one had breast cancer. Those 2 passed away, and then my third aunt had ovarian cancer, and she survived.
Wow.
So it was like I had, kicked it off, and it was not an issue before.
So even before all of this, you did your annual, like your monthly, not annual, your monthly exam, and that's how you found it, or you just happened to find it that one time? Like, was it something that you did all the time?
No, I didn't. It just showed up because it was on that outer rib. And
so you felt it when you were like moving your arm or something like that?
I was in the shower, and as I was washing up, boom, there it was. And the thing is, I really got to thinking, I never thought about why me. I was thinking, why did I need this? And I really sat and I would listen to my body, and what I thought about the location of it, and it was on the left outside. And that spoke volumes to me, because I realized I left myself outside of my life. I was busy taking care of everybody else, except things to maintain myself for my Army life, being able to run and do the physical side of the job. But I wasn't doing the mind, body, soul, the whole health connection.
Wow, I love that.
So yeah, so my master's is in health psychology, and that's what I work toward, helping other people get that connection. Don't just work on one thing. Everything is connected.
Right. So then what happened throughout the whole period? Like, because you're in your 20s, no one expects you to get breast cancer while you're in your 20s. That's really young.
It was, and that's one of the reasons why they didn't take it seriously. So what happened was, I had an awesome surgeon, and what I learned through this is you need to create a team. You have to have a great support network. And so my doctor, it was a Friday that I went in, and he gave me literature, and he told me to read through that and then come back on Monday, and we would make an educated decision together.
Okay.
So I was really pleased with that. And being that it just popped up, it was first stage, I didn't have, and he did offer, well, you can do this. And, you can do either a lumpectomy, and then what they call an axillary dissection, where they remove your lymph nodes from your armpit, and then to see if the cancer has traveled. And then from there, we would go decide on treatment. So anyway, I decided that if I were going to go through this, and I'd rather start out small, let's just do the lumpectomy and go from there. And so they did that, and then they took the margins around the area and found that they were clear. There was no cancer there, and then there was no cancer in my lymph nodes. So they said that June 21st, 1994, I was cancer-free. They said 100% cure, 100% recovery, and I stuck that in my brain. However, they said because I was so young and the cancer was so aggressive, they wanted to treat it just in case a microscopic cell broke off anywhere. Okay. So we followed up with chemo and radiation. I did 6 rounds of chemo and 30 rounds of radiation. Mm. So, I get concerned with people because they go to the extremes. They go, have like a double mastectomy or something like that. Even if they don't have it, it's to avoid it. But for me, I'm thinking, and not just me, but there are doctors out there, you still have breast tissue in your rib cage. You could still develop breast cancer. So the better thing to do is change your body. Take charge. Again, it goes back to the mind, body, soul. You got to work with preventative maintenance. Don't run scared with your hair on fire thinking, oh no, I got this. Let it be something that speaks to you, and then you can become an advocate. What I found been a real blessing. It was a super difficult time to go through, but now I've got the sisterhood. When you find somebody who's had breast cancer, you're instant friends, you're connected, and you can help each other. But I did go through the chemo and the radiation, and they gave me the option to go on convalescent leave throughout the whole time, but I chose to be as normal as I could. And so I would have chemo on a Monday, and then I would be sick all week long. And, I would drink water and I would eat Cheerios. That was basically it. I could not eat throughout that week. And then the following 2 weeks, then I would work a modified schedule. And it was difficult because to go from being like Superwoman to be able to, I used to do 73 push-ups in 2 minutes, 85 sit-ups, and be able to run 2 miles in 15 minutes. I couldn't even finish a shower, and I had no hair, so how long could a shower take? And then I would have to take a nap, and it was so physically draining. And I think this is where the PTSD kicked in, because when you go from being so high speed to trying to do a job that you used to do with ease, and then you'd start panic. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And thankfully I had a great boss who said, well, no matter how much I give you, you can only do one thing at a time. So, that's what I was focusing on. It's the one thing at a time, not multitasking. Just do one thing, complete it, move to the next thing. It helped me get through that stage of treatment and that modified schedule.
Now, back to that. Do you remember what you were?
Pardon me?
Do you remember mentally where you were with all that was going on?
Where I was mentally? I was in a pretty good state. I was strong in the church, so I had my good foundation there. And the key words of that surgeon with 100% cure, 100% recovery, I never thought I was going to die. There were times where I wanted to, that treatment, it was hard. It was really hard. And so, I was able to make it through. And the thing is, I was stationed at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and my parents and family, they were up in the Minneapolis area, and my parents came down for the surgery, and I was really kind of panicked because I was telling my mom, oh, you don't have to come. It's no big deal. I'm not losing any body parts. And, what I learned now as a mom, it's like, there's no way I wouldn't be there. To me, it was scary that they were coming because that made it feel like it was more serious.
Right. That makes sense. Hey, Norma Stevens in the chat says that she loved your analogy of left outside, because so many of us do this, which is so true as moms. We worry about everyone else and we don't take care of ourselves, and we leave ourselves out. So I think that's very, I love her comment as well.
Yeah, thank you, Norma. I appreciate that. Yes, I think the key with surviving is I'm thankful because I only had me to worry about. I did not have children. I wasn't married, I did have my boyfriend, who is my current boyfriend now. We had 20 years separation there. So that is an awesome story all on its own. But I didn't have to worry about comforting everybody else. And my aunts who passed away, that's what they did. That's what I saw. That was my perspective. Okay. And they had gotten sick, but they were so busy comforting everybody, have the time, or they didn't take the time to really embrace what it was and figure out what the why was for their cancer. And right. They ended up not surviving. And I think the key is being selfish. And selfish again is, people think that's a bad thing, but as a mom, I learned I was the best mom when I took care of myself first. I would get up extra early in the morning to take care of me, to have my quiet time, meditation, whatever, so that I could feed me first. Then no matter what my kids wanted, then I could give to them. But if you are woken up by screaming kids and you're giving to them right away and you're not in a mood to deal with it, then you're not going to do that as well. And you're not going to be as loving. And then your whole body, you're all tensed up. You're just creating a bunch of ugliness within you, and it has to come out somehow. And for me, not taking care of me first came out in.
So now let me ask you this, because you mentioned about taking the mind-body connection through the Army. Was this after your cancer? And so now you're having the perspective looking back, or did you actually have this perspective and then you took the training?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I took it after. I took it in the fall of 2015.
Oh,
and okay. I didn't realize, it took me so long to realize the effects, the residual effects of having had cancer. I didn't realize really what all I was going through. And again, that's the importance about surviving cancer. You're just surviving. You're just making it from one treatment to the next, and that's your focus. Mm-hmm. And also, having been so young, they didn't, and being a soldier, they weren't used to me. I was something new. I was an anomaly. And they didn't have mindfulness. I know that John Kabat-Zinn started this back in Boston back in the 70s, the late 70s. And this was 94 when I had been diagnosed. And the VA has come a long way. They're now doing all this type of stuff. But they didn't, what I later found out was I should have frozen eggs before I went through chemo and radiation. I didn't realize the ability that I could become infertile. And so I'm very thankful. I call my children my blessings, because I had my daughter about a year and a half after my treatment, my last treatment, and I had my son, they're 14 months apart. So they're 19 and 20. And a year after I had my son, a year and a half after I had my son, I had a hysterectomy. So there was a very small window of opportunity to have my children. And had I known that it could have been difficult, I might have mentally blocked myself from becoming pregnant.
Right.
So it is true. We create so many blocks in our minds thinking that we can't do something. Also, I had an awesome nurse who said, just read so much. Don't try to overwhelm yourself with trying to figure out the why of it. Because my receptors were negative. The hormones, I attributed mine to chemicals, because I used to be a photojournalist in the Army, and we worked in the dark rooms at that time. So I would deal with all the chemicals. Plus, having been a newspaper editor, we'd work, 70-hour weeks. It was just so much work. So having the chemicals along with the stress, and, my diet wasn't always that great. And just, of course, being in your 20s, I'm seeing my daughter now. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a reminder of me back then, because you're running and running and you're so exhausted, but then you're pulling energy out of somewhere to run some more. And so anyway, because she told me that, I didn't look into all the side effects that could happen,
so
from the chemo.
Pre-programming.
Exactly. I didn't do that. And I had to make an agreement with my mind and my body that the chemo that they were putting into me was going to heal me, that it was something good, that it wasn't killing me, that it wasn't poison. And I think that is a key, because it is so toxic that it can kill you. And so if you're telling yourself that, okay, I'm 100% cure, 100% recovery, this medication is going to help me, it's all about attitude and what you tell yourself and what you believe. And you really have to surround yourself with people who support that, and different people. So to help you, because it's funny, as I was telling you, I lost all my hair, not just this, I lost my eyebrows, my eyelashes, my face looked waxy. And, I did wear a wig, and I felt like a big liar, wearing a wig to work. And that was hard. And as you said, how old were you? You're 26. I was at the height of coming out and becoming a woman. And here I had scars. I have scars all over, and I'm bald, and I have no hair. And so the worse I felt, the better I tried to make myself look. I would put on my makeup, I'd dress up nicely. After I was diagnosed, I went home and I painted my fingernails. And I know that sounds really crazy, but I don't even know why I did it at the time, but as I thought about it, your insides, they're just going nuts. You're thinking, oh my gosh, how do I control this? And you're just going crazy. And the only thing that I could control was how I looked on the outside. So I sat down and I calmly painted my fingernails. And so on days when I wasn't feeling so well, I put on makeup, I dressed myself up nicely and try to project a better feeling. And so when I looked in the mirror, like I should be in bed, I wanted to continue living as I was going through that treatment.
Wow.
So, that, and also I try to have fun with it. I would wear different wigs, different colored wigs, different length, curly, red, blonde, dark, whatever. It was just, I called it mood hair, whatever mood I was in.
Love that.
Yeah, you had to have fun with it. I figured if I were going to go through it, the only thing I have a choice about is my attitude. So I could be happy, or I could be miserable. And so many funny things happened to me throughout that treatment. So, again, I'm just feeling so blessed, because I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I also there's a paradigm shift there. And instead of looking at cancer as being just this awful thing that's going to stop you in your tracks and wreck your life, it really changed me. From the time I was, prior to being 26, I really worked hard to, maintain my body and my health. But after that just reinforced it. It wasn't just what I was doing physically. Mm-hmm. It was what I was doing mentally and emotionally, spiritually, that it was all connected to really help me to develop as a full person. It helped me to become multidimensional. So,
No, I think this is so key. It's fortunate that you were able to, recognize and have that training. So what about people that don't have, because this training is offered through the VA. What would you recommend people that don't have that training available to them?
YouTube is fantastic. John Kabat-Zinn has these videos, and you practice like the body scan. Part of mindfulness is it's a combination of things. You're meditating, you're doing light yoga, doing some body talk, and then just connecting with a small group of people. And you're practicing listening. There's an exercise there where you have to listen to somebody, and even after they're finished talking, you can't interject. You have to keep your mouth closed and just listen to them. And then you repeat back to them what it is you think you heard. And I would definitely recommend getting on YouTube, looking up mindfulness, and of course the founder of that will pop up, and there are videos. And the body scan helps you connect with each part of your body. You go from your toes all the way through. It really helped me because I was having chronic pelvic pain along with chronic abdominal pain. And I had it for about 9 months. And the VA ran me through every test. And it came up negative. Mm-hmm. There was nothing that was there, but I had the pain. And so through the mindfulness, what I learned about my body was that you connect, you find where's the pain. So I realized, okay, I have pelvic pain. Now, what am I thinking? What was I thinking at the time I was having that pain? Well, during that time, my daughter was away at firefighter school for the Army. My son was in his senior year of high school. I knew that I would be having an empty nest soon. And so the ovary, that's where the ovary is. And it was the empty nest syndrome. It's connected to my children leaving. Plus, prior to that, back in 2011, I had my ovaries removed. See, I had a hysterectomy back in 1999, but I kept my ovaries because, and this was a very difficult decision because my aunt had just been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And it's like, oh my gosh, do I keep them or not? So I sat back and I researched and found out, there was a chance I could get ovarian cancer. However, there would be a definite that by losing those hormones from having my ovaries removed, all those things. So those were definites. And so I figured, well, took care of cancer once, I'd rather just continue to be monitored. So, so through the mindfulness, then I realized that my body was grieving the loss of the ovaries. And so putting those together, so then every time I would have that pain, then I would check my thoughts. Oh, okay, I'm thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about this. Then I could release those muscles. And once I released those muscles and I was practicing that, the abdominal pain went away too, because the pelvic muscles were pulling on the abdominal muscles, causing all that chronic pain. And my body was healed. I rarely ever have those pains. And if I do, it's like, okay, what am I thinking? And you can see right there, you have control rather than have to take medication or anything like that. And then the light yoga and the qigong and the different exercises that you do. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, YouTube is fantastic. You can learn anything from them. And they also, not just the VA, but other clinics do offer mindfulness training as well.
And I like how you recommend the mindfulness training, because a lot of times what people say is, when they're going through some kind of struggling, they're always saying, well, go talk to someone or go to a therapist. And what they don't realize is they're perpetuating what's going on because they keep talking about it, which means they're thinking about it. So I really love that you mentioned and really stressing the mindfulness training, because our thoughts really do control our action and what's going on. So thank you so much for reiterating that. That's something I've been preaching about forever, but I think it drives home when other people say the same thing, and particularly if you've gone through something like what you've gone through.
Definitely. And thank you for bringing up the, what you think about, you bring about. It's that law of attraction. And I really am very focused on the words I speak and the thoughts that I think. And I have learned how to, rather than suppress thoughts, because part of my anxiety was I would have just insane thoughts, just psycho crazy thoughts of death, just crazy things. And so rather than packing them down, because when you pack them down, then they just fester and they come back. And so I've been learning to let them present themselves, come out into the light, and then replace the thought. Replace it with a different thought, an opposite thought. And like if, so say having had cancer, you think, you get a pain and you're like, oh, cancer, ouch. That cancer comes in. And so instead of that, then thinking cancer, I think health. I am healthy. And every single time that comes up, I say, I am healthy. I can run 5 miles. I am healthy. I can, and list all the things that I can do rather than becoming sick again, talking myself into being sick. You can talk yourself into being healthy. And one of the awesome things that I did when I was going through the treatment was I went to, there was a Bernie Siegel. He's a Dr. Bernie Siegel. He works with cancer patients and the visualization and all of that. He happened to come to South Carolina. I went to a dinner and where he was speaking, and that was powerful. And it was just visualizing yourself healthy, and that was really key. And when I had gotten out of the military, I had my daughter, and then I'd found out that I was pregnant with my son. And I had just started this support group. Well, here I was in my late 20s, and I was 30 plus, and they would go share their story, and it was a horrible thing. They would go around the room and just say how they had this horrible experience, and then everybody in their family died, and on and on and on. And here I have my daughter Lindy in a car seat, and I was pregnant with my son David, and it's like, I can't do this. I can't sit in a room with my babies, my future, and think about not only me dying, but them dying too. And, you just really have to pick your battles and surround yourself with positive people who think positively and speak positively, all of that, because you create your own future.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this one, because I know now we know about the thoughts part, the thoughts and your actions, but when you first started doing that, because I'm thinking of the audience, when you first started doing that, did you actually believe it?
No, it takes some practice because you're working through fear. You're working and you're living off of fear, and you're not breathing. You're not breathing through your whole body. You're breathing with your lungs, and you're just stuck in your head. And I kept doing it though. I don't know, again, it's your inner self, your inner person that you're, and I'm careful when I talk about God, because I don't want to shut off any audience, because I know that oftentimes with cancer, people end up hating God and blame God and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I speak to anybody, everybody has their own spiritual identity. And so whatever that is for you, it might be God, it might be the creator, it might be the divine universe, something inside of me, my higher self spoke to me. And so my subconscious was speaking through me. And so you have to let how your heart or your soul feels, let that override what you're thinking. And you have to trust that. And from there, that's where your faith comes from. And you let your faith replace your fear. And you line up all the different things that you were successful in. For example, to get away from the cancer topic and go to education, I waited to get my degree because I was afraid and I didn't think I could do it. And I was going through the classes and stuff, and I thought, I'm not going to make it to graduation. And so I pulled out my Army records, and I pulled out my diploma from graduation, from basic training graduation, from my AIT, my photojournalism graduation, from my primary leadership school graduation, from my intermediate photo course graduation. I said, I can do this. So you pull out everything that you've already done and you stack it against that negative talk in your head and say, oh, no, I can do it.
I love that. So now, do you know where that fear came from? Because you did have all that success. So where did the fear of the education come from, or that particular education?
Well, the fear of failing there was I'd never succeeded, or I'd never tried going to college. I had gone through floral design school right out of high school, and I became a certified florist. But I was scared at how enormous a university was, and I just didn't think I could. I always had it in me. I felt like this is something I needed to do, but I was afraid that I couldn't do it. It's just like giving birth too. When I was having my daughter, I reached a point where I thought, I can't do this. I am afraid I can't do it. And then I looked at all the different women who've given birth, and I thought, if they can do it, I can do it.
I can relate to that one.
Yes.
So now tell us about your books that you have coming out.
I'm working on 2 books right now. One is called How to Start Living Outside of Cancer. And the first one, it talks about, because we talked earlier about how we go from just treatment to treatment and you're just focused on surviving. Mm-hmm. How do you step past that? How do you get past that fear? Because I know that when I was going through the treatment, I felt like I was doing something to combat it. And then when you stop, you're done. It's like, oh no, I'm not doing anything to keep myself healthy. And then you end up with that fear of a recurrence. And so this book here is to help you step out from having the cancer treatment into actually living, and not just living, but thriving. And so we talk about that you have to make that decision, decide to live, decide to thrive. And then you have to create a new goal, a future goal. Create a future for yourself, because if you only have a future of, oh, I'm going to this treatment, well, then you don't see beyond that. But you have to plan something. Like maybe if you're going to go talk to somebody about this, share it with others, you go buy a brand new outfit that you're going to wear to this event. That's how you start living. You start planning out future events, things that you want to do. And you're thinking about, okay, if you do the body talk and you're asking your body, why myself out of my body, out of my life? And so practicing weaving myself into my life, so that way I can trust and I can relax in the idea that I'm not going to have a recurrence. I am healthy. And anytime you might have that thought, just change it with the opposite thought. I'm not having a recurrence. I am healthy. And I am helping others, and I am going to benefit others, share my experience with them, that I am going to take what's happening here and share it so others can benefit from my experience. Talking about your mind, body, and your spirit, ways to help your mind, working on thought control, ways to help your body through exercise, sleep, again, mindfulness, and then your spirit with connecting and making sure that you have a good, solid support network. You have to have positive people in your life. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's starting over again. It is having a mission. And, when I was going through the chemo and all of that, in the Army, you have the different uniforms. You have like your BDUs, the battle dress uniform, which you usually use every day. And then you have your Class A uniform where you might wear that if you're going to go before a board. And then you've got your Class Blues where you might go to like the Army ball or something like that. And then, for me, cancer was a uniform. It was, I was to all these different places and meet people I wouldn't have normally met and give them words of encouragement and help them along the way and just make those amazing connections. So, you're taking all this and making the most of it. And like I said in the beginning, you decide to live. You want to make that decision, and no matter what, you're going to turn it around and help others with it. Let it become a blessing. Own it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love. So now, when's this book coming out, and how can people get in contact if they want more information?
The How to Start Living After a Life of Survival should be out hopefully by the end of this year. And then the other one, The Cancer Light, the funny side of cancer, hopefully the early spring next year. And I've been working them both at the same time. And my email, mondayfriday2002@yahoo.com. That's a great way to get a hold of me, or else through Facebook. And you can find me through Mona Lammers Friday at Facebook. And like with the Cancer Light book, the funny side, I thought the otherness of the cancer part, but then you have to go into the funny things. When I was taking chemo, I was upstairs in the hospital. We each had our own little recliner, but I was having treatment with old World War II vets or Korean War vets, and they used to tell me these terrible stories, and they're just so funny. And tell me how it was so cold, during the Korean War that they would have to pee on the muzzles of their weapons so that they could get them to fire. And just all this information, it's so funny. And, and then attempting to try to wear fake eyelashes and having them peel off while I'm in the middle of my day. Or when I was having a meeting with my boss, and my first chemo treatment, my hair stayed in. I didn't lose it until about 2 to 3 weeks later. I was sitting in my boss's office having a meeting, and then there's a fan blowing behind me, and my hair was blowing off onto his desk, coming right out of my
How did you react to that at that time?
Oh, I just laughed because I thought it was hilarious. They all knew that they knew the steps that were coming.
Okay.
And so it was expected.
Now I'm sorry. The connection was leaky, so I didn't know that you were still speaking. But I wanted to ask you, so what do you think is important when you're going through something like this, that you actually share it with others? Because some people are like really, really private. They want to keep it in. What is your take on that?
I say that you share it with whoever you feel comfortable with, because not everybody wants to know. Not everybody is comfortable with it. There were people who found out that I had cancer and they wouldn't even shake my hand.
Really?
Yeah, it was very odd. I don't know if they thought they would catch it or what, but they were very standoffish. So you really have to really pay attention to your body and how you feel and what you feel like sharing. Because again, it's all about you. You have to be selfish during this time. So if you don't feel like talking, don't. You have to go off of how you're, again, feeling, what you're thinking, the connection. But if you think that somebody might be able to benefit from what you're going through, then you can share. But you can also be very limited on what you share. You don't have to divulge every share with somebody, and choose your form of sharing. You could write them a little note, say, "Been there, done that, know what you're going through," or something like that, and possibly have a quiet one-on-one with somebody. But you don't have to go blurt it to everybody that you're going through this. And, I think the fewer people that you you interact with, it's probably best at that time because you are vulnerable during that time.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. So is there anything else you want to say or anything else you want to share?
I'm just looking forward to seeing how this evolves because I've gone through so many different stages of development. Now I was a third grade teacher and I was in the Army. I've got my health psychology master's, so it's building up to now I'm going out there and I'm speaking to people and I'm writing my books and making that happen. And I'd just love to help guide people through if they are interested in some coaching.
All right, so let me go ahead and put your email address again. If you want to get in contact with Mona Friday, then her email is, I love her email, by the way. Her name is Monday Friday, 2002 at yahoo.com if you want to get in contact with Mona. All right, well, thank you for sharing your story with us because, I think, again, the purpose of this forum is to have an open forum so that we can share. And one of the things that you did say that I really want to drive home to my women friends, my sisters out there, all the women that are out there that are listening to this. Selfishness is not a bad thing. You have to be selfish with yourself because everyone else is going to be selfish with themselves. And if you don't put yourself first, no one else is going to put you first. Okay, so you have to be that important to yourself that is so important. It's paramount to nothing else. You come first in your life for every single thing. And if you have that attitude, then you will have enough to give to other people. If you try to do it the opposite, you're going to deplete yourself, which of course is going to affect how you're interacting with others. And we know this because we don't think about this. And when we're raising our children, it comes out into the form of us yelling at them and then feeling bad about yelling at them or being overly stressed and overly, taxed with our day. So put yourself first. All right. So I want to thank you for take the time for watching this Empowering Women series. I want to again thank Mona for coming on and sharing her story. And guys, if there's something out there, your stories that you want to share, reach out to me because again, this is an open forum. It is my intent only to, again, get this information out there so that we can see that we're not alone. Life is hard as it is, but the more that we share, sharing is caring, right? And I love that you say, let your fear turn into your faith because again, it's all important. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you again on the next Empowering Women series. That will be sometime next week. All right, have a good day.
Thank you, Pia.
You're welcome.